You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Get on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Hello there, Broncos country, and it is once again time for another episode of Building the Broncos. I am your host, Carl Dumler, and with me as always, I have my co-host and good friend, Mr. Nick Kendell. Nick, tough Monday, man.
Yeah, tough Monday, tough Sunday, long. Man, it's not as fun when your teams aren't winning. You know, that's what it comes down to. And let me tell you, judging by my friends, my little internet bubble that I've formed over time as far as Broncos fans, people are close to the edge. You know, I can feel it too. But man, there's a lot of people rolling their eyes and ready for somebody's head. And here we go again, I guess, is the general consensus. So yeah, it's rough. And also the Cardinals, man, losing on that walk-off home run, struggled to be there. You know, grateful to be there, but what can you do? So yeah, no, just rough sports Sunday, and hopefully things will be turning around soon in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, that's you and I both being Cardinals and Broncos fans and then losing both last second, pretty much. I mean,
heartbreakers.
For baseball, last second, when it's top of the ninth, you're winning, 2 out.
3-2 count, winning by a run, grand slam. Yep, that sucks. Yep. And then the Broncos, I mean, goodness, some people will point at the refs, and some of the players will point at the refs too, but, you know, you made enough mistakes yourself where you shouldn't put yourself in the situation where the refs are the outcome maker of the game. So at least that's the way I look at it. So yeah, it's stinky Sunday, as it shall be called going forward. It
is, but that doesn't mean we don't have a great show for you. And so we want to make sure also that you can follow us on Twitter, because we're going to have lots of thoughts. We even on a bad season, we can have some great thoughts about the Broncos and what they can do to get back on track. So make sure you're following us on Twitter. You can find me at Carl Dumler MHH, and of course Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. And you can follow the podcast Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. And make sure you subscribe to our show and leave us a rating, as we value your input. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, and even that of YouTube. Also, make sure you head on over to milehighhuddle.com, a new affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. Also, this podcast is powered by Overtime Media.
It's a fact. Refinancing your credit card balances can lower your interest rate and save you money, and you don't have to be a financial expert to do it. Right now, you can get a credit card consolidation loan from my friends at Lightstream with a rate as low as 5.95 APR with AutoPay, lower than the average credit card interest rate of over 19% APR. That means you could save thousands of dollars on interest. Get a loan from $5,000 to $100,000. Just for my listeners, apply now to get a special interest rate discount. The only way to get this discount is to go through lightstream.com/huddleup. That's lightstream.com/huddleup. Subject to credit approval. Rate includes a 0.5% auto pay discount. Terms and conditions apply, and offers are subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/huddleup for more information.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Well, like every week, we like to look at least the stock up, stock down, and just realize that even if the team loses, that doesn't mean that everything was terrible. I mean, that's the great thing about sports is even in the bad, there's good. And even in the good, there's bad. It's just kind of there's nothing perfect, and there's nothing completely so destroyed unless you're the Miami Dolphins. Then it's, the only thing you got to look forward to as a Dolphins fan is maybe the draft. And even there you're kind of going, man, it's still going to be like 3 years before we're good. But at least we're not the Dolphins. We can say that. But no, we're going to take stock of this game and look at some individual performances and just see that there were some players that really stood out. And I think one of the most obvious ones in the entire game, Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, let's just start and stop there pretty much. The guy was, I still can't believe 7 months ago this guy has ankle surgery, Achilles surgery, and here he is looking like he's never been hurt. I mean, I think he looks quicker than he did last year.
He does look quicker. I mean, granted, he was dealing with a foot issue last year. Who knows how long he's been dealing with that foot issue? right? Like he had to have the double surgery with the Achilles as well as the ankle or the knee.
I think it was an ankle surgery also.
Is it 2 ankle? Okay, so the other ankle though. So yeah, man, just crazy. And goodness, when he is out there, he's looking dynamic. And let's be real, he was doing that against a pretty darn good secondary. I mean, from Danny Trevathan, Roquan Smith in the middle, where he did some work, to the safeties, Clinton Dix, and Eddie Jackson, and the corners. I mean, obviously, Prince Amukamara went out at one point, but Kyle Fuller was first-team All-Pro last year, and he showed that in that interception in the red zone. Good play by him. So, yeah, no, Sanders did incredibly well, and I feel bad for him almost, right? Like, I think both wide receivers actually looked okay, but Sanders, probably the best player on the field yesterday for the Broncos, if you ask me.
For sure. I mean, it's hard to think of anybody else that really showed as much as he did. Again, just he looks dynamic. His routes look great. His hands have always been great. He had that one catch where he just got lit up and held on to the football, and he always does that. I mean, I'm just impressed by usually the smaller guys because they have smaller hands. They don't have that consistent of hands, but he works at it and works at his route running, just does all the little things right. And he really put that team on his back when they absolutely needed plays. He and Sutton both showed up when they needed plays. But Sanders with that touchdown catch, oh my goodness. It doesn't get much closer than that. I mean, I thought they were going to maybe possibly think about overturning it just because that's been the Broncos' luck at times. But his knee being down, and then, of course, he comes up with a 2-point conversion as well. It just, there's not enough good things that we could say about this guy. To the point that you and I were talking earlier, should the Broncos think about extending Emmanuel Sanders?
Right? Like, that's 31 years old, coming off the Achilles, skill position, so doesn't have a lot longer left, but he's a really good complement to Sutton on the opposite side playing that X, and he looks really good. Like, maybe his value is at as low as it's going to be this season. So, and I can't imagine. I mean, this offense has been pitiful as far as scoring output and even yardage, too. Can you imagine what they'd look like without Sanders? Like, is the Bobby Boucher in the Waterboy, when he's playing in the Bourbon Bowl, and they decide, you know what, it's better if we punt every time instead of putting the offense out there to go against the Waterboy. Yep. That might be the point that we're at. Like, and the defense hasn't been great. That's just like how I don't even know if I want to watch the offense at that point, just because he's the real dynamic threat. And Sutton's making some plays. The run game is had some promise against a good Bears defense. I mean, let's be real, guys. But Sanders is the straw that stirs the drink, so to speak.
For sure, for sure. So who's your first guy to really take notice of that just had a great game?
I thought Derek Wolfe was absolutely balling on Sunday. He was destroying his gaps, and I know he had the holding penalties. One of them, he said neither of them were really that fair. One of them, he read the screen and ripped that running back down to the ground. And that was a hold. That was something was going to be thrown there. If he occupies that guy, kind of, that's one thing. But he just pretty much picked him up and set him down. The other one, I think that was in the first quarter, very early on in the game. Not great. That was one that I don't think should have existed. And he's right also to say that the people are really upset about the Broncos pass rush not getting home, but the ends don't meet the results. Right now, the Broncos aren't getting the pressure, but it has a lot to do with how teams are playing them, and that's for a number of reasons. So, from the offense to the back seven. So, I don't know. From the game itself, though, Derek Wolfe, I thought he played great. He dominated the point of attack. I mean, they could really not get much going on the right side. Almost all their big plays came going the other way in the run game. Gotsis was getting moved off the point of attack. Shelby Harris was a no-show for a second week. But I thought Wolfe playing very well, very disruptive, and opened up stuff for everybody around him. He was just moving guys at the point of attack. It was an impressive show, and I'm really excited for the All-22.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the penalties, we could argue, I guess, some on how valid they were, but
one of them was valid. One of them, if it's called, okay, they're putting an emphasis on defensive holding, what the heck am I supposed to do? It's kind of like Bradley Chubb getting that penalty. What the heck is he supposed to do? It's just, that's going to happen sometimes, I guess. Right,
yeah. I don't know how you, in football, hit somebody softer than that.
Yeah.
You about have to carry him to the ground, and it's that funny. I don't know if you saw the parody where they did the putting them on a pillow or not a pillow on a mattress, slowly putting him down,
tucking him in, kissing him on the nose.
Yep. Here's a flag. So yeah, and they were calling it on both sides. That's that's something we can't argue that they weren't just calling it on the Broncos, because there was that one roughing the passer penalty against the Bears.
Eddie Goldman.
That kind of equaled some of that out. But yeah, no, I love the game of Wolfe and really kind of showed up as that he put the energy in the defense.
Yes.
I mean, you could see there was at least a little bit more energy this time around than last week. And so really good to see that, and just to see a veteran step up like that. And again, another guy getting up there in age, but continues to show well. I mean, it's kind of funny. Last week we kept pointing out all these young players that were really stepping up for the Broncos in that game. Now it's the old guys' turn. And them just really showing that they're the veterans of this group, and that they deserve to have their name up there too. And I know the Broncos have been working on an extension with Wolfe, and we'll see if that ends up happening or not. But again, just another good game by him. Glad to see that, because he's a guy that's worked his tail off for this organization, and I always appreciate what he brings to the table.
Sacrifice mind, body, and soul for the Broncos.
Exactly. All right. Well, now we got to go stock down, unfortunately, because there were some things that were not going well. I thought this game was better for him than last week, and I thought this was a tougher opponent. So, I mean, you got to look at that a little bit. But for a second week in a row, another name pops up, Isaac Yiadom. And it's one of those, Chad brought it up during the game, I think, in our chat, that if you're not great at certain things, you better at least show up great in the things that you're good at. And unfortunately, Yiadom did not show up as a great tackler. He had the one third down play that, yes, the player for the Bears had a lot of weight against him. But Yiadom has always been known as a great tackler. The team needed a play there. They needed to stop the bleeding, and he couldn't make it. And I mean, there's other plays where he just wasn't quite in position. Just coverage-wise was okay, not great. It just, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing the Broncos can really do right now, because I know people keep saying, well, get him out of there. But obviously they have him in there because he's shown more than the guys behind him. That's always the problem is, yeah, you can try to bench a starter, but that doesn't always mean it's going to be great coming in either. And I like Bosby, and I want to see what Dawson can do, but it's still, I don't know if they're going to bring a whole lot more than what Yiadom's bringing so far.
Yeah, I mean, he's out there, and he's supposed to be out there, at least in my mind, because he is a physical player that can be a solid tackler at the edge. And they're going to be, in this scheme, you're going to put your cornerbacks in a situation where they have to make a tackle. And to be fair to him, Adam Shaheen is absolutely massive. I don't know if you remember him from the NFL draft, but he is like 6'8", 265, which is, I mean, he's got to be one of the top 4 biggest tight ends in football, like with his size. I remember seeing him at the Combine. He was incredible. He was really excited about Chipotle, but that's a whole nother story. That sticks in my head. Him and his parents stoked about Chipotle. Anyway, Bosby, maybe you give him a shot, maybe Duke Dawson, but it's one of those things where the Broncos need to figure out if Yiadom can turn it around, right? Like, if you're not going to learn about him if you're not playing him. And the adversity is part of the battle. You know, maybe he's not the guy, but, you know, you use that investment in him and you see the flashes, you see the tools, you know, the traits is what you're supposed to scout for, not the stats. And you see those. So, like, are you pulling him? I don't think I would yet, even though he's been struggling. He's a second-year player, but he improved from week 1 to week 2. And, you know, you're going to have some ups and downs with a day 2 pick playing in, you know, a new scheme, second year in the league. Right.
Well, and you got to look at it as, you got to know teams are going to challenge him.
Yeah.
So he's going to give up some. Yeah, they're not going to challenge Chris Harris. And so you got to know that he's going to have some throws come his way. And yes, I know you'd hope that he'd make a couple more plays throughout the game. But he's still a young player. I mean, like I said, the Broncos a little bit just have to figure out for the future, is he part of that future? Or do they need to really look hard at cornerback moving forward? Because Chris Harris, is he going to be part of the future still? We'll see. He might get too expensive. And then behind him, you got Bryce Callahan, who we still haven't seen yet. And not sure if we will ever see him, because he's always had some foot issues or injury issues. So that's always got to be a concern with him. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of just trying to figure out what these young guys are for the Broncos and whether they're a long-term solution or if the Broncos really do need to invest more, either free agency, trade, or draft.
Yep, absolutely. And for me, I was praising some patience there for Yadam, but Garett Bolles, it's time to shit or get off the pot. Called for 4 holding penalties, and I thought other than those plays, he was okay out there, but you can't do that. And the fact that many of these holds were on run plays, even, dude, at some point you have to have some level of awareness and composure. And I know he's not out there getting personal fouls, but it's too constant for me at this point. And we heard from some sources that some of the coaches are oh man, he came to us. He's actually ready to learn now. He's been broken. The fans, turning on him. He's ready to flip the switch. Well, I've been a Garett Bolles patience, calling for that for years now, and he's making me look dumb. So I don't know. I'm gonna need to see it from him. Maybe he turns it around. I think the Broncos are, just like with Yadam, even more so than Yadam, they're sink or swim with Garett Bolles at left tackle because, you're playing Jake Rogers. I'm sorry, but probably not. And so until Jawan James comes back and then you maybe can kick Wilkinson over to left tackle, Bolles is going to get a chance and you're going to have to live with the ups and downs. So maybe he turns it around. Maybe he can salvage something. But at this point, he looks like a guy who is a dead man walking, and probably one of the guys most likely to be replaced this upcoming season. Be a priority from John Elway in the front office is this guy. We can't deal with this guy anymore. So
right,
Garett Bolles, he should be put on notice today.
Right. Well, and I don't know if you listened to the broadcast, but they had Mark Schlereth, of course, on there, and sometimes
Garett
he
Bolles'
goes
biggest critic. Right,
and yes, he goes over the top sometimes, but he kept pointing out every time that they would say number 72 holding penalty, he'd have this look what did I do? And it's just kind of that awareness of he doesn't even know he's doing something wrong. And you see it. He keeps doing the same things over and over again. He's just not learning, or he's not wanting to learn. And so, yeah, you hope that he has maybe when you hit that rock bottom and fans are booing you, and from what I understand, there might have been some that were throwing things at him, which is way beyond what you should ever do as a fan. But still, right now it's very embarrassing what he's showing on the field. Problem is, there's just no way the Broncos can bench him, at least not till Jawan James gets back. And you hope that he doesn't just sit there and say, well, I know that, so I don't have to do anything. But I don't know. It is. It's very frustrating. Yes, he had a very tough matchup. It's kind of crazy that the Broncos would have a backup right tackle, but they would always stick Khalil Mack against Garett Bolles.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Good point.
So I think the Bears made it pretty obvious who they thought was the weak link between those two.
Yeah.
And, it showed. Mack, he had the one sack, which was actually not against Garett Bolles, but still, he showed that he was winning that matchup left and right. So anyway, let's get back to the good here. Second stock up, I'm going to go with Justin Simmons. And there was a couple times he was out of position in this game, but he also came up with some huge plays. What do you have? I think he had 3 pass breakups in this one.
Yeah. And
he was very solid as a tackler coming in against some of those bigger guys.
Yes.
I saw him clean up Shaheen a couple times. And, he knows how to take down a big man. Go low.
Yeah.
That's what my coaches always told me. And I've had a lot of people get after me. You're like, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't go after their knees. I'm like, well, that's what I was taught when I was in high school. You go high, it's not going to work out well for you.
No, especially against
You're going backwards. Yeah, exactly. But no, I really thought this was a really good breakout game for him. Showed well in coverage, showed well in run defense, and just was flying around the field. There's a couple plays I thought, oh man, Cohen's got the edge. Nope. Justin Simmons shows up. So again, I thought this was a really solid game for him.
Yeah, no, I've definitely thought he was great. And the point that you made, the aggression coming downhill and just the propensity to clean up with a physical ending was something that I'm not used to seeing from Justin Simmons. He has some range, the athleticism, the length back there, decent coverage, some versatility, but the physicality and the coming down that you want from a safety has just never been there, to this point at least. And he showed fly. I mean, he's never going to be Cam Chancellor, but he came down and cleaned up some plays and cleaned some clocks as well. And that one play that he had against Tariq Cohen in the first half where he was, I mean, that was going to be a 60-yard pass, and he somehow dislodged it, was, I mean, probably the singular effort play of the game, because he sold out for that one. So, yeah, Justin Simmons, great play from him, and both safeties really played well in this game. But I'm going to focus now on Elijah Wilkinson at right tackle. You mentioned it, that for the most part he went up against Leonard Floyd, and I thought for what was a decently shaky game, week 1, Wilkinson looked pretty good at right tackle week 2. You know, they mentioned the heavy hands in the preseason, and he showed that. And while he's not the most nimble athlete, the fact that he can play with solid balance, strong hands, and decent length, he's serviceable for how quickly the Broncos have been getting the ball out. So I'm not sure if you really want him as the long-term right tackle. I don't think he's going to make a healthy Jawan James sweat, especially the investment the Broncos played. But as far as pushing a Garett Bolles at left tackle when James comes back, that's something that we could see happen. I think that if Bolles plays like this again, I mean, that's something that we should see happen. Don't move Dalton Reisner. Don't make 2 areas on the roster weaker by doing something like that. Leave Reisner at left guard. I'm sorry, folks. Just stop that one. But Wilkinson, left guard. Right guard, Wilkinson, left tackle. I mean, if Leary gets hurt or continues to struggle, I think Leary might be injured. We'll see. I don't know. He's just playing. He looks dinged up. I don't know. I've been impressed with Wilkinson, especially considering in preseason I thought he looked like he struggled. In week 1 when he came in, it's a tough situation, but I thought he looked like he struggled. In this one I thought, yikes. Leonard Floyd just got a sack against David Bakhtiari week 1, best left tackle in football. And then he going up against Wilkinson or Mack. I thought Wilkinson was in for a rough game against Floyd or Mack, and he played well. So I'm feeling pretty good about Wilkinson there. And worst case, he sticks at right tackle for a while, but I could see him pushing Leary and or Bolles going forward if he continue playing like this.
I think the biggest difference I saw in him from week 1 to week 2 was how explosive he was out of his stance.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's not the greatest athlete, but there's been a lot of times where he does the whole stand up and then try to move. And as a tackle, that just does terrible things. I mean, you're already a step behind against an athlete that's much more athletic than you. And this game, he really exploded out of his stance, beat the guy to the edge, and got himself in position. If the guy tried to cut back inside, he was right there to punch him. Just really, like I said, just always was right there in position. And just really liked what I saw from him as well. And so, like I said, hopefully he can emerge and become something for the Broncos. I mean, it'd be nice to be able to have a player like him stick around and become something for the Broncos, become that next big project for Munchak that turns him into something. And I mean, you can tell the difference. You can see the work that he's put in and some of the technique things that he's doing. So very, very happy for him. And like I said, just hope that continues because the Broncos need him. With an injury already, Bolles struggling, Broncos got to have something out of Wilkinson. But moving on to our next stock down here, I'm going to go with Will Parks. And I know he didn't play a whole lot. Just in the snaps that I saw, though, I was not very impressed. Did you notice him on that play, Cordero Patterson, when he had that really big long run? Did you see what Will Parks did on that play?
I did not. Cannot recall.
Okay, so this is why he makes my stock down. Because he, instead of trying to find the ball, he just went to go try to uncleat a guy that was trying to block him. And so he was right there in position to make a play on Cordero Patterson, but he wasn't looking for the ball. He was just looking to try to, I don't know if he was trying to destroy, thinking that if he could destroy that guy, other guys could come and clean things up. But he was right there because Patterson was getting ready to run right by the guy that he was getting ready to blow up. And I mean, it's just those little things. It's those little plays because that was one of those low scoring games. Both teams are known for their defense. All you need is that one big explosive play and it could be the difference in the game. And obviously it was pretty big difference in the game. And I just look at that. There's a couple other plays where he gave up some catches. I just didn't think it was his best game by any means.
Yeah, he definitely played better than Yadam did week 1, but Yadam stepped up as well. So it's probably the better alignment, to get him out there for some of those reps until Callahan comes back. But he didn't bring the impact that many had hoped for, I guess. So there's a reason that he's probably not playing so much. And for me, stock down, probably, honest to God, Bolles is getting eviscerated right now, and rightfully so. He's a bad game. I mean, you can point to a lot of his issues as the reason they lost, but my God, Corey Nelson, not good. How many plays is he just going to read the wrong hole or just get completely blown up? I mean, the Broncos did better against the run this week, but that was, defensive line, safeties, the edge rusher oriented. Corey Nelson not doing a lick, and I know that fans kind of hold him in a higher light because he was on that Super Bowl team. Broncos did try to retain him before he went to the Eagles, but he's been on 3 teams since then. Dude is not good, and I don't know what it says about A.J. Johnson or Justin Hollins or Keyshawn Bierria that they're not out there, but man, Corey Nelson has been an absolute eyesore out there at linebacker, and Todd Davis, please, if you're listening, get back soon because the Broncos dearly miss you on defense.
Yes. When I saw that he wasn't playing again this week, I knew this would be an issue. Nelson really is just such a weak link in that defense right now. And, it's just showing how thin that position is for the Broncos that he would get brought in last minute and already be a starter for the Broncos. And, like I said, because of Todd Davis's injury, but thankfully his playing partner has actually done pretty good. But, Josie Jewell, I've actually been pretty impressed with him for the most part. He's been out of position a couple times, but he's really stepped up his game, I thought. He's
played better, but he's also an almost player for me. Right.
Like
he's like, oh, man, he almost made the tackle. Oh, he almost tipped that ball. It's like, gosh, if he was just a little longer, more athletic, he could have made the play. So unless he starts processing better, especially in the run game, he's going to be an almost player for me. But continue. That's just my thing. I think he's playing better, too. But it's just like, God bless it if he was just a little bit more XYZ, but so is life.
Right. But no, you're right. Corey Nelson, there was a lot of run plays where he just would over pursue and leave a huge cutback lane for the running back. Pretty much every one of their long runs were at Corey Nelson.
Yeah.
And that should just tell you what, again, teams know where to attack. And Corey Nelson was that guy for them. But our final stock up here, I'm going to go Royce Freeman. And I know Lindsey gets all the attention. And with good reason. The guy is super quick, easily lovable, all those kind of things. I'm wearing a Philip Lindsay shirt right now. I didn't even think about that till right now that I'm looking at my shirt and I'm going, oh yeah, that's a Philip Lindsay shirt. But the last 2 games, who has been the leading rusher for the Broncos? Royce Freeman. On less carries, he's had greater average. And then on top of that, he had more yards receiving, had more receptions. And so right now, through 2 games, he has been the better all-around running back for the Broncos than Philip Lindsay.
I agree with you. I think he's been really good.
I think his vision has improved. He's getting through some tiny, tiny holes. I'm sitting there going, how did you see that? And I don't know. He just seems to do it. When the Broncos threw that interception, I had somebody text me going, why didn't they just keep Royce Freeman in the game and keep handing it off to him?
Yeah.
And it's so funny because last year I had people texting me saying, why is Royce Freeman in the game when we have Philip Lindsay? and so it's just this 180 turn in how people are starting to see Freeman and what he can bring to this offense and how good of a fit he is in this zone blocking scheme. So I'm really proud of the guy. And very excited to see what he could do moving forward. And if the Broncos could ever actually get off to a good start in a game and just really rely on the run game in the second half, I think you could see this guy just really take the soul of a team.
And I do expect the offensive line to continue to get a little bit better in the run game, especially with the zone concepts, which I think Royce has actually been doing better than Lindsey. There's so much rhythm and feel with hitting the hole correctly and squarely in the zone, and Royce just feels like he has it. And not only that, but he's running heavy, when he makes contact with a defender, he's falling forward. So I've been really impressed with him as well. And not only that, but props to Lindsay as well. Their usage in the pass game has been a welcome sight. It hasn't translated to points yet, but they're still installing a new offense, and they have holes on the offense as well. So it's going to happen. And for me, my final stock up, a guy that I think is quickly becoming one of my favorite players in Kareem Jackson, number 22, just flying around the field, making plays. The coverage ability, the ability to drop down and play that nickel spot there. He's been impressive, and I think it's just a matter of time before he makes a game-changing play. And that versatility, the intelligence he's playing with on the back end, and just the demeanor. Derek Wolfe, you mentioned bringing energy. I thought that Kareem Jackson also had just sort of that defensive back swagger that you want to him. He was out there yelling, making some plays, pounding his chest. So I was impressed with Kareem Jackson, and I think him and Simmons have a chance to be one of the biggest bright spots on the defense this season. And Jackson's versatility is something that I'm in love with already. It's a really a need in the back end of this defense. And I don't think that the first layer of the defense, well, maybe somewhat the defensive line, the interior guys getting pressure. But the first level, the edge rushers, not worried about them yet. The second level, worried. Third level, though, the safeties, those guys, feeling pretty good about Simmons and Kareem Jackson. What have your thoughts been on Kareem Jackson?
I've loved him. I mean, really, he's been, other than maybe Chris Harris, the best coverage guy for this team for sure. And he's definitely shown up in some big moments. I love his aggressiveness in the run game. There's just nothing in his game that I don't like. I mean, he just seems like a great fit for this defense. And he's been so high energy as well. I mean, that's something. Last week, we talked about how the team just kind of lacked that energy, just didn't really show up like they should have. Kareem Jackson was still one of those guys that was jumping around, making plays, being that one guy that was really showing up. And he did it again this week. And so I love what he brings to the table, that versatility. You've talked about him being that guy that just, you love in that kind of defense where he can play safety, he can play cornerback, he can play slot. He can just do about everything you want out of a player in that secondary. And so, yeah, very, very impressed. Glad we got him. Just need somebody else to really step up, make a play. I mean, that was kind of the big thing in that game. You just kept waiting for one player to make a play, like one big game-changing play. And Kareem Jackson was so close. He almost had that pick six. Oh, that would have just completely opened up the game if he could have had that. But no, they just seem to be missing that one play. I know everybody kind of thought, okay, at the end of the game, Von Miller is going to get that one sack that he always seems to do to close out games, and it just didn't quite happen. And it's just showing where this team is right now. Yep.
Absolutely agree with you. So, all right, we should take a quick break. We will be right back. Don't go anywhere, folks.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Alrighty, and we are back on the Building the Broncos podcast. I am Nick, along with Carl. Carl, week 1 to week 2, both losses, but, not every loss is the same. What did you feel the Broncos improved upon this week?
I honestly liked, for the most part, the play calling of the offense compared to last week. Understanding who you're going against with Khalil Mack, Leonard Floyd, with their interior pass rush. And so starting off with a quick passing game, just getting your guys a chance to go make some plays, and the times where they would speed up the offense to kind of catch the Bears off balance a little bit, plus use the altitude to their advantage, some misdirection in the run game, and they really got everyone involved. They had 8 players catch a pass in this last game. And so I just liked that they were really mixing things up. They understood the struggles that they had in week 1, and they were actually consistently moving the football. Now, yes, the points didn't really improve, actually went down, but they were playing maybe the best defense in football as well. And I will say, I think what they only had 1 3-and-out the entire game. And that was right there at the end of the first half. Otherwise, every drive at least picked up 1 first down. And while I know that's not, again, translating to points, it's still an improvement over last year. I mean, last year, how many drives were that quick 3-and-out and you're going, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. Defense is going straight back out there. I actually feel like this offense can do some things, can move the football. And I think as time goes on, you're going to start seeing some of those points begin to show up. They're having stupid penalties and stupid things that stop these drives, and I'll talk about that more later. But in actually being able to move the football, they can do it. And I think I even messaged you guys during the game that one thing that really stuck out to me was a holding penalty doesn't completely destroy a drive for this team.
Yeah.
I mean, it did a few times, but it's still
it sucked.
It did stink, but it's still there was a couple times where they got a holding penalty and still were able to go get a first down. Last year, holding penalty, you're like, might as well just punt it now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's done. There's no way they're picking up when it's 1st and 20. There's no way they're getting a first down. And so, I mean, you could tell some differences, some little things that I think, again, as time goes on, as this group gets closer together, and I mean, I just think that they're going to be able to do a few more things this year compared to last year. What about you?
Well, for me, one of the big improvements this week, it does hint at what you said in play calling, but just Sanders' involvement. You know, the guy is the spark plug of the offense. Him and Lindsey, definitely the two guys. And Sutton's emerging. Hopefully we'll see more from Fant. But I feel like Sanders is your most dynamic passing threat. And the more you get involved, the better your offense is going to be. And granted, you know, you don't want to force feed him if he's being double or triple covered, which, you know, could happen coming out of this game considering how good he was. But man, that touchdown catch was so good. I'm just reflecting on it. Sorry, what a play. But man, yeah, he's getting him involved early and often. You know, maybe if you want to get cute with any end arounds, that's the guy to do it with. So I'm excited about that and excited to see what he can do going forward. And I'm very interested in his next week matchup against probably one of the best young cornerbacks in football in Jair Alexander, who's just been absolutely balling this season. So excited for that one. Also, just Royce Freeman in the run game. You know, we talked about it already, but how he's being used, the authority he's running with, the vision, the patience. You know, it's not just between the tackles; it's outside the hash marks, and his ability in the pass game too. But really, he's bringing just so much power and a thud to that run game, as well as decent explosiveness in the second level when he gets there. You know, he's showing good balance, and I was critical about that pick in the NFL draft. I really wanted Fred Warner, who went one pick before. But Freeman's playing very well, and like you said, I'm not ready to say that I'm not going to say that he's better than Philip Lindsay. That's silly given sample size and the explosion from Lindsay. But I think it's fair to say that through the first two games, he has been playing better. So that's great. So I'm excited about that. Special teams, you know, we made a lot about it, but I thought Colby Wadman he's been pretty good the first 2 weeks. Good punts, solid overall, and the coverage teams have been good. The big thing is McManus has to be continually kicking it out of the back of the end zone because the depth on special teams isn't great for those coverage units. But, you know, whether it be McManus, who got blessed by the football gods for not missing the extra point, oh my goodness. But, you know, punting and kicking, for the most part, I thought has been good and definitely an improvement for the area I was coming into the season, where special teams was red alert. And the coverage unit's still a concern, but definitely improvement there. And Deontay Johnson, I think he's got a chance to make some plays. I mean, at least he brings a little bit something there and hasn't been terrible in his returns. And then finally, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say there was one return where he ran to the right, made the turnaround, went back to the left, which one is just always setting up for a penalty.
Yeah.
Because you got guys blocking guys one way, then all of a sudden they got to turn and try to block them the other way. And just not getting north and south. That was the only time that I was like, what are you doing, buddy? I mean, I know he's trying to get a bigger play, but still it's better than what the Broncos have seen all through preseason. So I'm with you. Special teams, really so far, they've only had the one really bad play. The one time on was it the punt coverage or kickoff coverage?
It was the kickoff to Moore.
Yeah. That other than that, they've been pretty solid. At least they haven't completely destroyed the team.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, they really had nowhere to go but up, but they've gone up, so I'll take it. Then finally, for me, we touched on it, but I think it's only a matter of time before one of these safeties makes a game-changing dynamic play. They're very close. They're still learning this defense. They need some help from the linebackers and cornerbacks not named Chris Harris Jr., but we're seeing the flashes already start to show from both Simmons and Jackson. And I'm really excited. You know, once Callahan comes back, once Davis comes back, this defense could really start to turn the corner. And granted, you know, we will find out a lot about them this week against the Bears. and Mitchell Trubisky led, or against the Packers this week, and a Mitchell Trubisky led Bears offense is, not scaring anybody. But I think that those two guys coming back will be big, and then the safeties on top of it, really does have a chance to be dynamic. So excited about that. And Carl, what areas do you think? And Carl, speaking of the positives, from weeks 1 to 2, what areas through the first 2 weeks do you think need attention from the Broncos? Some areas that they need to work on.
Well, I mean, you look at pretty much most of the stats of that game, you would think the Broncos won that game. They had more first downs. They had more total yards. I mean, same in the yards per play. They were much better in the run game. Pass game wasn't that terrible, other than, the one interception was the one big play there. But, the area the Broncos completely destroyed themselves is those self-destructive plays, penalties. Had 10 penalties for 81 yards. The holding calls on some big plays. And some of them, you hit on it earlier, some of them with Bolles, his player wasn't going to make the play. And he's still going and driving that guy to the ground. You got to know that's going to get the attention of the officials. I know you're trying to be aggressive, but, it just wiped off a 15, 20-yard run by Phillip Lindsay. And, then, of course, the big interception in the red zone, that's points off the board. That's at least a field goal, and you lose by 2. And so just really destructive things that everything else points to the Broncos winning that game, except for that. And, that's why they lost. If we're going to break it down to the nitty-gritty of what cost this team the game, it really does boil down to their own destructive behavior. And I would say the same in week 1 in some ways. There's just some very destructive things, penalties, just drop passes, things that shouldn't be showing up, but they are. And when you're losing these close games, that's what you're going to have to look back at. And right now, until the Broncos clean those things up, it's hard to see them beating many teams this year.
Yeah, good points all around. And for me, really, it's something that I've had an issue with and harped on it last season. But if you're moving the ball, and I do feel like the Broncos are moving the ball better than they have in previous seasons, last season of Trevor Siemian, definitely moving it better than when they had Tebow, or the season with Case Keenum. But they got to punch it in. They got to punch it in, whether it be more explosive plays and the like of that. The red zone offense has got to be better. You got to be scoring touchdowns when you get 25 yards away, 20 yards away. Depends on which team, you ask what is the red zone. Classically, it's 20 yards, but some teams say it's 25. So they got to do better there. And threes are great. Brandon McManus being solid, great, but they got to score. And for me also, I don't feel like they are utilizing play action enough. It's something that can really help this offense. And granted, you have to have the blockers up front to at least buy the time for the play action, which there's questions there, because play actions inherently are longer developing pass plays. But if you can hold up there, you got to run more play action. So that's something I want to see more. And with the play action comes more explosive passing. So maybe he has to fix the pass blocking before he can implement more play action or feel comfortable with it. Or maybe have a more athletic quarterback back there. But really just need to punch the ball in the end zone. Moving the ball better, but still, you put up 6 points in the first 14 minutes of the game or whatever it is. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. So definitely need to see more explosive plays and punching it in when they get a chance. So, all right, one more break, folks. We will be right back.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Alrighty, and we are back on the Building the Broncos podcast. I am Nick with Carl. Carl, 0-2 on the season. The Broncos have not finished 0-2 more than, I think this is the third time in the last 50 seasons, and only 5 teams in the past 30 seasons have gone on to playoffs after going 0-3. So heading into Lambeau, is it safe to say, once again, a must-win game?
Well, yeah, 0-3, it's about impossible. And you're looking at the division itself. The Chiefs are running away with this division already. That offense is just ridiculous. There's nothing else to say about it right now. They lose one of their top weapons, and they're still just as explosive. And I had a friend that's a big Chiefs fan, And I kept texting him throughout the game, oh, man, did you see that hit on Kelsey? I can't believe he's going to be done for the season. Just trying to give them at least a little bit of worry, because right now they have nothing to worry about. And, Raiders and Chargers are both ahead of the Broncos. And, the season's not over by any means when you're 0-2. Really, if you look at the AFC, you got the Chiefs and Patriots and then everybody else. I guess you could put Baltimore in that discussion, maybe. Would you?
Not yet.
So, really you got those two teams then, and then everybody else. So if they can sneak a win out of Lambeau, maybe you start feeling a little bit better about this team of beating such a... I said that the Packers are one of the top teams in football this year.
And they're only getting better.
One of the dark horses. Yeah. Of course, Rodgers, you got him. That defense, I think, is one of the more underrated defenses in all of football. It is. It's must win, and it's going to be one of the toughest games on their schedule, I think. There's just not many teams that go into Lambeau and win, and especially when they got a really good team. So Broncos are going to have to play really just perfect football, I think, if they're going to win that one and get a couple breaks to go their way. Maybe a couple calls that go their way, all that kind of stuff.
How about a turnover?
That would be big. They definitely need one, which is, Rodgers is one of the quarterbacks that turns it over the fewest of any quarterback out there.
But he holds onto the ball.
He does. So, there's going to be some chances, but we'll just have to kind of see. Again, I just want to see what this offense can do against such a great defense. The Raiders, I don't think, have a great defense by any means, but to have the Packers and Bears, if they can do something against the Packers, I'm going to feel much, much better about this offense and their chances to do something moving forward.
So, hypothetical, let's say the Broncos go in, I think they're 8.5-point dogs against the Packers at this point. We're recording this on Monday, so the line will probably move. Say the Broncos lose by 7. Where are you at with this team? Where are you going with this team?
Well, honestly, I'd feel pretty good.
Really, at 0-3?
What? Oh, 0-3?
Yeah, no, the Broncos lose by a touchdown. Not win by a touchdown.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said win. Sorry.
I was like, how can you twist this? Like, please tell me.
No. At that point, it really is starting to... I'd be making some adjustments and just see if some other players can come in, step up. You got to start doing something different. What isn't that the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So at that point, yeah, my perspective on this team is you're playing for 2020. I hate saying that. I hate to throw away the season, but at the same time, I guess I went into this season not expecting them to be Super Bowl contenders. So I always viewed this season as an evaluation season anyway.
Yeah. And that's the reason that playing Garett Bolles and Isaac Yiadom, despite the ups and downs, probably something you need to do. Right?
Right. Oh, yeah, it is. It is. Again, sometimes the best thing that we can learn from is our mistakes. Yeah. And for Yiadom, I think this can be a great learning experience for him. I do think that he improved from week 1 to week 2. And I think he is one of those players. You already said it, that he's got lots of tools. He's got lots of things that he can bring to the table if he can just reach that potential. And all he needs is that opportunity and a chance to go out there and prove himself. There's been a lot of players that didn't emerge until second, third, fourth season in their career. And I know everybody wants everybody to emerge day one. It's just not the way it works. Unfortunately, you got the human element of the game.
Look at Eric Ebron. Look at Prince Amukamara. That's something Fangio's done pretty well in his career also. He's obtained other people's early round draft assets that didn't work. And then, hey, they look like the player we drafted them, or the original team drafted them to be. So there's a reason you don't quit on talent. And the talent has to want it, though. Garett Bolles, looking at you. So that's a big thing. But if the season is 0-3, you got to probably shift your focus to being a more evaluation kind of season. And that means, you have to move the goalpost a little bit. There are no moral victories, but, you're going to be a pretty unhappy person if you can't dissect the game and pick out things like, hey, Dalton Reisner's playing at a Pro Bowl level. He struggled against Akeem Hicks this week, but just saying, like, as an example. Or, hey, Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsay, these guys are going to be good for the next 2-3 seasons. Broncos got backs there. Sutton's emerging. Or, hey, Josie Jewell looks like a solid piece. Or, man, Bradley Chubb is going to be an absolute star. So there's things that we can take away. And that does mean shifting the goalposts a little bit. Yes, I'll fully admit that. But, there's worse things than having a bad football season. There's even worse things than having 3 bad football seasons in a row. But the thing for me is they need to not lie to themselves, have some self-awareness, and realize that the way that they have been going about free agency, the draft, and this team building stuff, although I do think the last 2 drafts have been better, but in general, it's been slapping a Band-Aid on a fully taken off limb. You're still hemorrhaging. Folks, like, you mentioned already, doing the same thing over and over again, it's insanity. If you're 0-3,
right,
which, maybe the Broncos have been cursed a little bit by their early season success every season, and this season you can take the blinders off right away. No mistakes about it. Hey, not our year, guys. So we'll see. This Packers game, this is the tipping point. You lose this game, season's probably over. Let's be honest. The Bears and the Raiders games, 2 of the easier games on the schedule this season. We both projected those as wins, and we had the Broncos going 8-8, right?
Right.
So you never know, but the Browns maybe are a little worse. Can't take away too much from week 1. We'll see what happens tonight against the Jets. So it could be a long season, but there are still things that you can take away from it, both negative and positive, but you can't just live so much on the pure wins and losses. Otherwise, you're going to be extremely frustrated. You guys are smarter fans than that. If you're listening to these kind of podcasts, you guys are smarter fans than that. You can take things away. You can still be frustrated, but it's not just totally, they lost, I'm angry. They won, I'm elated. There's different ways you can go about each of that. So that's what it's about. So any real final thoughts before we get out of here, Carl?
Oh, just to kind of harp on that a little bit more. Like you said, at some point you might start seeing some of the younger guys get their chances as well to step in and see what they can bring to the table for the Broncos. Maybe we get to see Drew Lock. Maybe this makes them go, hey, he's only going to be on short-term IR. And so, I'm not too down on this season, like I said, just because I didn't have the highest expectations. I still think this is I'll be honest, I still think this is a better team than last year.
I do too. Well, healthy.
I
don't know about the depth.
Right. The depth is not great on this team, but for the most part, I do still think this is a better team. I still think this is a better coaching staff, and I do think that you saw the improvements just from week 1 to week 2. And so, if they can keep building on that, and by the end of the season have some momentum going in, and really that 2020 year, they have another good draft to put back-to-back drafts, well, then this team can actually become something. And so sometimes this is what you got to do. The Broncos are in a tough division already. And so right now, I know it's easy to get down. I was down yesterday. My wife just said, "Oh, they lost, didn't they?" And I was like, "Come on, yeah," because I was yelling, and but it hurts, but it's still, like I said, there's still things you can take from this season and say, okay, this is something that we can be excited about.
Yep, absolutely, I agree with you there. So that's going to wrap up today's episode of Building the Broncos, powered by Overtime Media. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Make sure you head on over to Mile High Huddle, an affiliate of Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. You can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up Show wherever you listen to your podcasts. For Carl, I'm Nick, wrapping up another episode of the Building the Broncos podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you soon. Go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.